Yo, what's up guys? Michael here from DMP Authority, and I hope you're having an amazing day. So welcome to the third and final segment of this course, where we'll continue getting dirty with the synthesizers. We're going to take a look at LFO modulators, or low frequency oscillator modulators. Just like envelopes discussed in the previous segments, we can attach LFOs to various components and parameters in a synthesizer and get them to control them in certain ways. So a LFO is exactly like the waveforms that we use to generate a sound in synthesizers, except in this case it doesn't actually generate a sound. We use the word low to describe these modulators because typically the LFO oscillates below human hearing range of 20 Hz. Now with the LFO, we're not interested in it generating sounds because it would be too low for us to hear anyway, but rather how we use it to modulate our other tools within the synthesizer, including the likes of amplitude, filter cutoff, and resonance. Right, so before I go on to explain any further, I'd just like to make an analogy. Now, what makes a great singer other than being able to stay in key? They're able to waver their voice when they sing, and we call that vibrato, and it's actually the pitch that's been slightly modulated up and down, and we can do the same with synthesized sounds using LFOs. If we take a look at Helm, we can see our LFOs located here, and just like the synthesizer's main sound generating oscillators, our LFO has a few properties of its own. We have wave shapes, very similar to the main oscillators, including sine waves, triangle waves, sawtooth waves, and so on. We also have the amount at which the oscillation is applied, as well as the frequency, how fast the LFO is modulating a parameter. So again, with any sort of modulation, there are just three important details to remember when configuring it. The source, i.e. where the modulation is coming from, in this case the LFO. The destination, what we're modulating, i.e. the amplitude, cutoff, resonance. And then the amount of modulation, how much we want this modulation to affect the parameter. So we'll typically always need to set it up, or in some way say that this modulator is controlling this parameter by this amount. So let's modulate the volume of the synthesizer. For our source, we'll use LFO1. Our destination is the volume, and we can set the amount of modulation by dragging the volume slider. Now we can hear and see how the volume is increasing and decreasing as the LFO is changing it. Now here we can specify the frequency of the LFO's oscillation. We can choose to sync it directly with the tempo, such as making one complete oscillation every beat, half beat, quarter note, eighth note, and so on. So if we want to modulate the volume control up and down with each kick on the 4 on the floor time signature, we'll set it to a quarter note synchronization. Alternatively, we can determine the timing in hertz or seconds. There are also three different ways in which the LFO will run. So let's modulate the volume of a regular sine wave, and we'll compare how the LFO runs at a constant 4 on the floor with a kick drum. So the most common way to run an LFO will be to sync it to the playhead, which means the LFO knows exactly where it needs to begin its oscillation, and the oscillations will always be in time with the song, regardless of when a key is pressed. Retrigger means the oscillation will reset and start from the beginning of the oscillation point every time a key is pressed, kind of like envelopes. Free means the oscillations will continually run at the speed set, regardless of any events such as starting and stopping play or key presses. In other words, you might hit play and the oscillation is 35% of the way through its cycle. It will probably be out of time with the song. Great for randomization. So let's just take a look at Dune CM's layout and assignment of LFOs. Here's the LFO section packing 3 LFO modules along with the common LFO controls. If we go to the modulation matrix, we can assign our LFO to a parameter of our choosing. So let's modulate the volume just to see how the modulation matrix works. Let's set our source as our LFO, LFO1, the destination as our volume or amplitude, and then we can set the amounts of modulation here. Right, so now that we can see how it works in a different synthesizer, let's have some fun and experiment with modulating a bass line. All I've got here is a simple intro, and then we jump into a loop where we can just freestyle with the LFO. We're going to primarily modulate the low-pass filter to create a wobble, but also modulate the volume a little bit with the same LFO, just so that the wobble is accentuated by changing the volume. Next, all we need to do is play around with changing the modulation frequency. Job done. So what I would like you to do now is to set up your own LFOs and begin attaching it to any parameter and just see what kind of interesting sounds you can also churn out. Alright, so that's it for this crash course into the basics of synthesis. I hope this was super beneficial to developing your own production skills, and I would also love to hear your thoughts on these videos I'm creating, as I'm always looking to improve my own content and just the content delivery for our community, and it's you guys who make it possible, so thank you so much. And one final note, so music production is a journey and it's something that takes time to develop. So if you're struggling a bit, just keep at it because it will come right. But more importantly, if you're really passionate about it, then now, not tomorrow, is the time to just sit down and make that drum loop or create that melody or create that bass line. Guys, have an awesome day and catch you in the next one.